Hello everyone, Revan619 here. I hope you're all doing really well. Today I am going to be talking about Cassia. I have been working on two Cassia builds for this spreadsheet. The first one being a Grand Strategist, which is the superior buff option, which we'll be going over today. The second is a Master Tactician, though that one relies on you having an ally to buff Cassia. Cassia can only really do effective damage if she's receiving heavy buffing, whereas if she is the buffer, she can enable allies to do exceptional damage, which is why I prefer to make her the Grand Strategist buffer. That way she can use all of her unique Navigator stuff to add some exceptional stats to allies, as well as having some really good utility. Her Point of Curiosity is probably the best thing in the game. It completely enables EO Gun, it completely enables Arc Rifles, it completely enables Blade Dancers, it completely enables Burst Fires and Soldiers. So it's just all around fantastic. There are going to be many items available to you as you progress your game with Cassia, and I do on my build spreadsheet, which I will have released before the 25th, which is going to be the final part of the DLC 3 update, because some of the EO Gun mechanics, such as his end slides and his colony rewards, haven't been fully integrated into the DLC release just yet, but I'll plan to have my spreadsheet out before then. But when it comes to itemization, one of the things you're going to want to keep in mind is the parameters on your staff. Some of your abilities and your talents will work with either the devastating, the castigating, or the infusing stat that are on your staff. So keep that in mind when you use powers, because you'll have to switch between your staffs to make sure you have the right one out depending on the action you are going for, and this will also impact your stats depending on the stats of the staff. Cassia does a lot of unique and interesting things, such as being able to buff allies from willpower as well as damage from willpower. She can buff allies from fellowship like many officers, but she can also stack her health from her willpower, as well as being able to debuff enemies based on her perception, and even stack her own dodge based on perception. This makes her a primary candidate for the Slick Body Glove, which will give her an extra 20 dodge, and if you're playing a Grand Strategist, you can get another 20 dodge for the Mediterranean War Boots, and because she can do big AoE stuns from Lidless Stare, Thrice Pioneer's braces are also a very good option for her. Because I like to go Grand Strategist, something like the Cloak and Field Emitter and the Commander's Notes can get 7 times bonus to her front line. Other items that are really good is obviously the Black Signet Ring of the Inquisition, because the Inquisitor's Tenant is the most overpowered thing in the game, and it's probably going to need to get nerfed once again, even though it keeps getting nerfed, to stop the game from being trivialized. In fact, the whole Grand Strategist setup needs to be nerfed to stop you going first to be able to abuse Officer. Until we get that, we're probably not going to see much of a challenge. The last item I also like to use on here is Medal of Alacrity, so this will allow her to have 3 AP on her Bring It Down, 4 with Firebrand, and we'll talk a little bit more about that once we go into the talents. But let's start by explaining just what a Navigator is and what it does first. So a Navigator is a very special origin in the game. Cassia is the only one that has access to it from the companions. If you kick her off the ship, you can recruit and create your own mercenary navigator that can be any base tier 1 archetype. What this does is it gives you access to a lot of features that are exclusive to the navigator and do everything from damage to buffing to debuffing, as well as some very unique abilities to her. Cassia starts with Lidless Stare, which is a AoE at warp base damage attack, which will pretty much ignore enemy defenses, as well as potentially stun enemies. This is exceptionally powerful and exceptionally useful. Other abilities you'll be able to pick up on here are targeted buffs, area buffs that will also lower the veil, but if you have your infusing staff will also buff allies. You'll be able to group enemies with stuff like Point of Curiosity. You'll be able to just do area buffs for force movement, which can allow you to provoke attacks of opportunity. You can increase the damage that enemies take by cursing them, as well as do single target based attack. There are other single target buffs that you can do, but honestly I don't feel like you need to stack buffs that high when you make good builds, because they will tend to reach those damage numbers. It's not just about raw stats, it's about talent synergy, ability synergy, and the combinations of the different archetypes. For this guide, I'm going to try to do more than just read out what talents I've picked, and I'm going to try to explain things a little bit more. I've done a officer guide recently, but I'm not going to assume that you all watched that from last week. The first one is Voice of Command. This is a targeted buff that uses your fellowship to give your allies stats. Cassia comes with Persuasion, which is going to be very useful because this is what builds up The skill that will be the basis for Inquisitor's Tenant from the ring that I showed you earlier, which you will get at the end of Act 2. Bring It Down will give extra turns to allies at 2 AP to start with, and it can even give a big momentum boost based on Cassia's fellowship, and this is if your allies gets a kill. Her heroic action is Finest Hour, which will give an ally a full extra turn with an attack cap of 12, so if they have up to 12 AP, they could make 12 attacks, though that you tend to be a little bit more limited. The Voice of Command buff will last for 1 turn, then has a 2-round cooldown, but with the Lasting Impression talent, you remain with half of the buffs that you would have had from Voice of Command. This is actually something that I asked Owlcat to change to from a long time ago, because originally they gave a very small temp HP buff, but now that we have this, Cassia can do a lot more. This is how she comes at rank 4, so let's talk about what I've actually done with her and why I've done it. Cassia starts with an uneven amount of willpower, and willpower is what she's going to use for some of her buffs as well as some of her damage, as well as other talents such as increasing her health. So I take willpower first just to get that even number, and I also take Mastery of Time. This will stack willpower up to 25 extra every time an ally receives an extra turn in the combat. Decisive Response is why I take it rank 6, because this will lower the first use of Voice of Command to bring it down, so it makes her more effective to be able to do buff as well as do other things at the same time. Start increasing her fellowship to enhance her officer-based abilities and talents, as well as then picking up Reveal the Light. Reveal the Light will buff allies' willpower and toughness, and it will also buff all of their stats by the infusing parameter of the staff. Make sure you have it equipped when you use it, and that you've not got the castigating version out. Eye of Oblivion will reduce enemies' dodge and hit chance based on Cassia's perception, so it's very useful to have this as a passive. I will then go into Focus. Focus is every time I do buffs to allies, I will stack Ballistic Skill and Perception. Perception is very important for lowering enemy dodge, as well as starting to increase her Persuasion. The first upgrade for Finest Hour I take is Finest Hour Upgrade 4. This will reduce all AP costs by 1 for non-attacking abilities for allies. Very important so they can get through as many attacks as possible. As a Navigator in Act 2 and Act 4, when you're exploring the map, you will get lore warp checks to be able to try and get Navigator's Insight. This is the travel cost mechanic, so it's very useful to get on to Cassia. I then increase more fellowship because you can only do 2 points of an attribute per level, so that will max that out. Then we get Mind Over Matter. This will allow her to make resistance tests with willpower, and if her willpower is higher than her toughness, it will scale her health from her willpower, not her toughness. We then start going into Perception, because as we know with Eye of Oblivion, it works there. Zone of Fear is going to be a big AoE that will force enemies out of an area, but if we have our castigating staff, it will apply the effect of that, and some of our abilities will also apply additional effects that we'll see at rank 13. I take Strained Vitality because it allows Cassia to heal herself every turn based on her willpower, and she will also get an additional 1 point per every Navigator talent she's taken. So it's very good passive, but if you want to trade this out for something else, this is probably going to be the one to do it for. Rank 13, this is where enemies under the effects of her powers lose 29 armor. Now this is a scaling ability. Because I'm endgame, it does look a little bit higher, but yes, it's going to be 5 plus the Navigator's willpower bonus. I then get more lore warp, more perception, and then pass unscathed. What this does is, if our perception is higher than our agility, we'll scale our dodge from our perception, so it's a very good thing to increase here. And lastly, we'll get the Finest Hour Upgrade 1, so during the extra turn, our allies deal extra damage based on fellowship, and they also count as being under Voice of Command. Very strong upgrades, and this is a very good Act 1 setup for Cassia, and it opens up the door to be able to go into a really strong buffer for Tier 2. As we move into Grand Strategist, we get access to the resource that is Combat Tactics. What Combat Tactics does is it gives us a front line, a back line, and a rear line. Each one of these have different effects and different sizes based on your stats. Frontline is a square-shaped one which gives you a bonus to armor based on intelligence, and it does increased damage to enemies based on fellowship. Backline gives a bonus on a little line which you can now rotate, which gives you int bonus cover efficiency and dodge, as well as fellowship dodge reduction to allies in that area. Rear zone is another line-based one which you can also rotate. All allies in the rear zone get the int bonus damage with ranged attacks and gain fellowship bonus critical hit chance. So these are all pretty useful. And that's just where the fun begins. Unlike previous versions of the build, the first thing I take is Combat Locust Stratagem. You can double the bonuses of one zone for one round, and it removes the other zones by doing this until you get Blurred Locust, which is why I take a rank 3, which allows you to place one other zone. The reason this is so good is you can get something that increases the bonuses from ×2 to ×4, and you can increase that by a further to a ×7 with an Act 5 item, but that's stuff that comes in later. Either way, this is going to be exceptionally good for if you're going on the attack or the defense, but normally you're going to put this on frontline and it just makes you absurd and unkillable. Taken Hold is probably one that I don't need to explain because you'll never really click it over Finest Hour, but it'll give you an extra turn for allies that are in a zone on the follow-up turn, but because it goes to turn 2, if you just use Finest Hour, you're going to win anyway. Start increasing the willpower to continue on with the abilities, but the first and most important Grand Strategist talent to take after Blurred Locust is going to be Improvised Strategy. At the start of combat, you'll be given a random stratagem for the cost of 0 AP, so it adds a bit of RNG, but means you don't need to invest into any more abilities for Grand Strategist. Continue taking willpower and then getting an early point of curiosity. This is the exceptionally powerful Navigator ability that allows you to stack up enemies if they fail a willpower resistant test. They move 3 cells towards where you place this. And yeah, it's just fantastic because you can set up arc rifles, you can set up EO gun, you can set up blade dancing, you can set up shearing strikes, you can set up assassin. Basically, whatever you want to do, this sets it up and it stacks enemies up, and it's what enables you to turn 1 very easily. Increasing Law Warp, taking Unnatural Law. Unnatural Law will give you 5 fellowship and +1 fellowship for every Navigator talent taken and Navigator power taken, so it's also very useful. More Perception, we get Veil of Protection, so we give 10% armor to allies, which Veil of Degradation will reduce this, but it will help you stack allies' armor. Fire at Will is another good one. This only works on an ally's main turn, but if you have allies in the backline at the start of their main turn, their attacks cost -1 AP, so their first attack that they make in that area. Continue increasing the Perception and the Law Warp, taking the upgrade to Taken Hold 4. What this does, it increases the action points granted by Taken Hold to 5. We're going to take Ebb and Flow at rank 13. So every even turn, the Navigator gains an additional action point, and every odd turn, the Navigator gains 20 Perception. This is one that you could have taken a little bit earlier at the previous level up in Tier 1 that I suggested that you could swap things around, but this is one I like to take a little bit later these days. Increasing more Fellowship and more Persuasion as we go through rank 13 and 14. Rank 15, we're going to get Mend Reality. What is really good about this, not only does it decrease Veil Degradation, all allies get +13 deflection against all warp damage and damage from psychic power until the end of the Navigator's turn, but if you have an Infusing Staff out, this is an AoE infusing buff. Rank 16, we take Guide of Souls. The Navigator starts all turns, including extra turns, with 3 additional movement points. The first ally to be targeted by a Navigator's single target ability each turn gains the same amount of additional movement points at the start of their next full turn. Also grab Stable Roots. Whenever the Navigator uses Navigator power, Veil Degradation is reduced by 1, which is very useful. We get some more Persuasion. We get a little bit of Intelligence, because obviously some Intelligence is good here because it does work in with our Grand Strategist zones. And then we, at rank 18, get the Course Untraveled. What this guy does is whenever the Navigator uses Navigator power that has not been used in combat, the Navigator gains 2 Perception until the end of combat. So as you go through your powers, you will slightly boost your Perception, which is more dodge for you. We also get Grenadier. Grenadier is very good because grenades now scale with intelligence, counters area attacks, and you can use this to debuff enemies with either Tears of Repentance or Iron Eye grenades. And to finish up our Tier 2, we're also going to take Taken Hold 3, so allies in the select area also gain 20 dodge reduction armor penetration. But this will set up the play for our Grand Strategist. Moving on into Tier 3, which is Exemplar, which is what you'll start to see towards the end of Act 2. We get Firebrand, because this increases Bring It Down to AP by 1 to allies and Seize the Initiative. So allies that have Voice of Command, they'll do additional 19% damage to enemies that have not yet acted. Because you're going to be using this at the start via Grand Strategist, this is always going to be active. We get some Law Warp, then we get Personal Combat Zone. Allies gain the ability to reposition the combat tax area they're in at the cost of 1 AP. So if you're going to be moving around a lot, they can move the zones. More willpower. We're going to take base skill Law Warp because Cassia's intelligence is quite low and we're going to need this to be able to pass some Law Warp checks. You can use items to up this out of combat. Air of Authority. This is a very good officer ability that will increase allies' resolve and give them additional action points. Because we're not using this AoE, it's why I don't take it earlier. More Law Warp. Degrade Defense. Yep, so any of our powers will help stack damage that our allies will do. Degrade Defense applies from all sources of damage and it applies to everyone attacking them. them, so it is just a straight up great debuff to put on the enemy. We also get Blood Augury at this point. Every time we repeat Psycho Powers, we get an additional damage percentage that will increase, so the more attacks we make, it will stack up extra damage, and at this point in the game, you do have staffs that will allow you to attack twice. Rank 6, we get Willpower and the upgrade, which will give momentum to allies based on their resolve via Inspiring Speech. So this is going to be the upgrade to Air of Authority. Rank 7, we get Held in My Gaze, which is a single target ability, and it can immobilize enemies. So it's very good for enemies that you don't want to then rush you, even if you're not planning to kill them with the attack. More willpower, we then pick up Threat and Faults, which will, whenever the enemy fails a resistance test against Navigator's power, attacks against them get a 46% critical hit chance. So again, very good to get after you've had Held in My Gaze, because it helps allies follow up, as well as increasing her Law Warp. This is going to be so we're ready to go into Act 4. More Persuasion, Eager Subordinates will boost the damage that allies do on extra turns. Personal Oversight, which is every time we put a buff on an ally, they get a stacking +1 to resolve, which is, again, very useful to be putting on allies, because it will guarantee getting heroic actions more quickly. As well as get more Persuasion, we increase our own resolve by 3 at this point, which is the equivalent of 30 fellowship. The reason is for Air of Authority, so we stack more benefits. So I used to take this quite early, but we don't need it so early anymore. And now we've got to the point where we've maximized the 2 skills that we can cover, so I'm just putting things into awareness because it's our highest stat. So we can get fairly good awareness with these late game level ups, even though we're not planning to cover those checks for the party. Rank 13, we take Strategic Offense. Every enemy killed in the frontline tactics area increases the bonus of combat tactics areas by +1 till the end of combat, so it is quite good to start building that up. We get some more Fellowship, and Awareness across rank 13 and 14. Rank 15, we take Eager for Battle. During the first turn of combat, we get 2 additional action points. Now, we're not going to probably be taking a Finest Hour turn, but it is useful to have to throw out some more buffs and more attacks. We also get Be Vigilant. Allies under the effect of officer abilities gain a bonus to their weapon skill equal to 12 and do 9 more points of attacks for opportunity. If we're going down the Arbiter's route for allies and we were using the zones where we proc willpower checks, we'd take this earlier because obviously they'd get more attacks of opportunity. Personal Zone, allies including Grand Strategist in the same combat tactics area with the Grand Strategist gain +5 Perception and Agility. Not a bad late game one, but most of these are just going to be whatever flavor you like to take. Pushing up some more awareness, we get Tonicity, which gives us +1 additional damage for every 5 bonus characteristics of the Navigator's staff. We also get Open to the Warp. Enemies affected by the Navigator's powers suffer stacking -10 penalties to their next resistant test from Navigator powers. This will mostly take in these ones at the end because it boosts our other talents that scale based on how many we have. Warp Curse Unleashed is going to make you have some very impressive numbers versus some endgame bosses, so it is useful to actually build into this before the Urulon encounter. More Perception, we finished with Combat Meditation, though you can switch this out to something else, but it's just a free 15 willpower, which is quite nice. You could put something like Cataclysm in there if you really wanted to. Unblinking Stare, so until the end of combat, enemies damaged by Navigator suffer an additional 13 damage from all attacks of opportunity and cannot dodge them. Not something that's very important, but it is just an extra Navigator power. And finally, we finish it up with rank 20 with an extra bit of AP. So that brings us to the end of the leveling part. What you're mostly going to do with Cassia is you're going to group enemies with Point of Curiosity. You're then going to put them in the frontline zone. You're going to apply Combat Locus Stratagem. You'll then probably put one of your allies in the rear zone to increase their overpen and critical hit chance, and it will also reduce their attack cost. Don't worry about the bugs and the numbers there. That's just a little glitch Owlcat need to fix. You would then be able to buff up another ally with, say, Voice Command, Air of Authority, Reveal the Light, and then you'd use Inquisitor's Tenant before you bring it down to them. And you could even pop a Warp Curse Unleashed if there's a boss in the encounter that you really want to destroy. Allies will locally build up a bit of momentum, and then it will come back to you when they end their turn. If you have any AP between that, you could also try for Men Reality, but now their Point of Curiosity costs 2 AP, it is hard to use both at the same time, so you have to kind of choose for a lot of the game between stacking it up and obviously getting more buffs out. But as you get towards 8 AP, which is going to be helpful because of Eager for Battle, we'll be able to do that. Then you'll give a Finest Hour, and then you'll watch your allies one turn the encounter. Correct use of Cassia's buffs will allow you to start one-turning the game from Act 2, and using items like the Sororitas boots that you get in Footfall, you can use your Lidless Stare to kill trash mobs, which will guarantee a first turn Finest Hour, or you can give them to Pascal and just pass him turns and watch him blast things because he is an absolute beast this update. But that's all I've got for you in the Cassia update video. There aren't any augmetics that you can put on her, and her item progression will be on the spreadsheet, so you'll see all of Act 1 to 5. And like I said, for people who don't mind about spoilers, do subscribe to the channel, do come along to some live streams, and watch me play this live if you want to see more questions and gameplay. Like I said, I'm trying to avoid any spoilers for any first-time players, which is why there's going to be no gameplay this time. I'll see you all in the next video.